I've spent the past year making super shoes, and the sole goal was to make a human being run as fast as possible, just top speed. Zero focus on endurance, agility, acceleration, purely max speed in any means possible, with any means. So here's what I could come up with. Hundreds of pairs of shoes bought, ruined, destroyed. That's about it. Okay, so here is the super shoe. Why is it two shoes? This one goes inside of this one. This is my normal shoe size, and then this one is the big one. What that does is it allows for more leverage, this longer length, much like a larger gear, so that your top speed is higher. So the average elite sprinter has much longer forefoot bones than the normal person, and that allows for more leverage per step. The trade-off is that it's less efficient, so you burn through your energy really quick. So this goes inside this to help stabilize your foot while still being inside this longer shoe. Now, this longer shoe doesn't have foot inside of it, so it requires stability. And that stability comes from this carbon fiber rod. Why a rod? Is because it is the lightest way I could add rigidity to this system. If I go for an insole that is actually thick enough to create this amount of stiffness, it'd be way too heavy. Like those carbon fiber insoles are kind of a scam in my opinion because they bend really easily. This requires hundreds of force to bend. I can't bend it with my arms. When you're sprinting, you are applying between 500, 800, sometimes even 1,000 pounds of force into the road per step. So the carbon fiber here has to be resilient enough to withstand that. At least mostly withstand it. You still want it to bend a little bit. So you're getting bounce from the carbon fiber rod. You're getting leverage from the increased length of the foot. Two more things. You're getting this bounce pad effect, right? Because this is made into a sort of arch, when this carbon fiber rod bends, the cloth/rubber on each end of the shoe resists, creating this bounce pad effect. Lastly, there are two different angles here. I purposely chose an inner shoe with a high toe angle versus this outer shoe with a low toe angle to create this difference here. And so it takes force for these to want to come together, effectively creating a tertiary bounce pad. So you get a triple forces happening here. That being said, this shoe is low-key kind of trash. It does work. It does result in the highest max speed I have found thus far. My base speed barefoot is 22 miles an hour. I'm already quite fast. But those resulted in 24 and a half to coming up on 25 miles per hour. However, this is my other design that I settled on after many variations that resulted in 23 and a half miles an hour, 23 and a half miles an hour. So it's almost as good, but it was usable in a lot more scenarios. So this I can run a little bit longer of a distance with. I could run a quarter mile, maybe even up to a half mile in these. I can sprint in these. They don't break like those ones do. So with this shoe, you get 3 to 4 sprints out of them. You can't sprint. They're not really good for anything because the acceleration is really slow because of this lever is so long. You know, when you're accelerating in your car, you start on a low gear because it has better acceleration. So this is a high gear shoe. The acceleration is terrible. The top speed is really good, but by the time you get to the top speed, you would have already been smoked in a real race. And then for the distance required for these to actually pay out, you would run out of energy. So they're kind of useless for every other race except for raw top speed, and that's it. So, but I will show you how to make these. So let's go. What you're going to need are lightweight, large sneakers. These are long distance track shoes, so they're lightweight, and these are size 13. My foot is a size 8. Secondly, you're going to need a pair. I recommend these Nike, I think they're called Zoom Flies. Why is that? Because they are very, very stiff. They are difficult to bend. The more difficult to bend, the better. And if you were to place them on a flat surface, you can see the toe angle is very extreme. It goes up at a pretty high angle. Next, you're going to need carbon fiber rods. Boom. Now, why rods? Rods because they are extremely strong compared to something like, this was a version that I made that had much too long of a lever. We're not making this, I'm just giving it as an example. But if you go wide and flat like this, you are adding excess weight, and that has actually been a pretty important variable in this. So I recommend carbon fiber rods. You can buy them on Amazon. They're very cheap, surprisingly. Now, depending on your weight, you're going to need a different thickness of rod. I personally like 8mm to 1 centimeter. This is 1 centimeter. If you're a heavier person and you run with a lot of force, you're going to need to go even thicker on these. We are increasing the lever arm of the foot, as well as giving some sort of mechanical advantage on top of the lever arm. Carbon fiber rod is going to end up going through this shoe, and then you run. Simple as that. You're going to need a drill, ideally. If not, you can use a knife too. You know what? I'm going to use a knife just to show that it is possible, because not everybody has drills at home. So let me grab one. All right, now I'm about to show the dogs for free here, but you're going to want the rod to be from in between your first two toes, diagonally down toward the outside of your heel, right along your arch. That's where your arch is, naturally. So you want to line up that rod inside the shoe in that sort of semi-diagonal position. Now you can even see in this shoe design, they have designed it to where the tread also matches that sort of arch angle. So for this shoe, it's actually fairly easy. You just want to line it up with this. I personally, with this shoe, I've made many tens of these at this point. I like to go right about there. And so try and be safe with this. There we go. Going into the shoe. And so this rod is going to end up going inside of this slit right here. Now we're going to do the same thing on the back. As you can see, the knife is going through the sole into the back. So next, we're going to go through the heel first. So you're just going to want to bend the shoe back, carbon fiber rod through the back, like so. And now we can push this carbon fiber rod through to a pretty far along, because I'm going to need to get this side in there, right? And as you can see right now, it doesn't reach. So we're going to push this more through, and now it should reach. We're going to peel back and push in this S sort of shape, push through like so, and then just push down like so. Now we have all this extra junk in the back, so at this point we're going to need to cut off the excess. I'm going to want to cut the rod just at the point where it is pushed up against the back of this shoe, and so that's going to be right about there. I'm going to take this Japanese wood saw. You can use any saw though, really. Any saw that cuts across the fabric grain sort of these carbon fiber rods cuts it relatively easily. So I'm just gonna mark it like so. And now, when I bend it away, I have that mark I can work with. Now, there we go. So let's feed this guy back through. It popped out. Back through we go. This is just about perfect. So the rod goes right to the back of the shoe, and then it's sort of holding this shoe in a foot arch. Lastly, I recommend cutting a hole in the back of this to tie the laces into. If you have thin ankles like I do, your heels are at risk of popping out of the shoe. So I put a hole in here and I tie the laces around the back to keep my foot, in there. All right, I got my little hole right there. I've got this massive leveraged, false foot made here. And I've got the inner shoe. It should be this one, like so. So I'm gonna make the other one, and then I'm gonna show you how to put them on. First things first, you're gonna wanna put on the inner shoe. Medium tightness is just fine. The outer shoe is gonna end up very tight, so if you go too loose, you're gonna get wrinkles that sort of pinch your skin. If you go too tight, you'll cut off your blood supply and not be as strong. So just medium tightness is fine here. Next, you're gonna put the outer shoe on. Make sure to loosen the shoelaces as much as humanly possible because you're putting a damn shoe inside of a shoe. You may have to wiggle it around a fair bit, especially if your spikes are very grippy. I don't recommend having the metal pieces on the spikes actually on, or you might cut yourself, as I've done many times. Once the outer shoe is on, you're going to want to tighten each shoelace as much as possible without too much pain, though you may have to go for a little bit of pain here. Next, I do recommend looping the laces into those little holes on the side for people with small ankles. All that leverage is going to cause your heels to want to pop out of the shoe, so it's really important that a lot of the tightness of the shoe is around the ankle. Next, you're going to want to loop the shoelaces through the back. So you're going to loop it through the hole you made in the outer shoe. And I did forget to say you should also make a hole in the back of the inner shoe that you're going to thread it through as well. While I do the tedious process of doing this, you may notice that scar on my leg. And about a year ago now, I snapped my leg clean in half. Bone out, dangling by the skin, bleeding out, rock climbing accident. So if you want me to do a video on how I recovered from that, I can make one, but I'm still working on this shoe here. Once you have them looped through, you're going to tie them together, effectively tying the shoes together so they can't peel apart from each other. Wrap it around your ankle, again for that ankle tightness, and give it a pretty tight knot. Try and make that knot behind the inner shoe's knot where it tends to get pretty uncomfortable. Once you have that done, confirm that the rod is going from your first two toes down to the middle / semi outside of your heel. And let's give these a test. As you can see, when I'm applying normal standing or walking forces, the shoes really do not want to bend. Only when I'm sprinting at max speed will they finally really start to bend. So at anything besides actual sprinting, you're quite uncomfortable. Now for a little bit of running, and whoosh, and another whoosh. Okay, let's slow this puppy down. As you can see, the toe really springs up instead of lifting more naturally, and I have to keep my arms a little bit wider to maintain stability with these powerful steps. So with this shoe, you get 3 to 4 sprints out of them. You can't sprint. They're not really good for anything because the acceleration is really slow because of this lever is so long. you know, when you're accelerating in your car, you start on a low gear because it has better acceleration. So this is a high gear shoe. The acceleration is terrible. The top speed is really good, but by the time you get to the top speed, you would have already been smoked in a real race. And then for the distance required for these to actually pay out, you would run out of energy. So they're kind of useless for every other race except for raw top speed, and that's it. So why are you trying to downsell this thing so much? It seems so epic. And I really don't want people to build this, but I do think it's really cool because of risk of injury. I have done a lot of training on my Achilles tendons, and I see so many videos of people just exploding theirs. So please, you know, make sure you're trained up to do it. Don't run with them too intensely if you end up making them. How did you train your Achilles and calves in a stretched position? And for that, I used these puppies. If you want to make your own at home, again, you need a very stiff shoe, or when you try and run, it just folds on you. And then you just attach a piece of foam or like shoe foam to the front. I'm going to do projects that I think will have better viability, though this was very interesting. If I may come back to it in the future just for funsies, but for now, I'm stopping here.